Hello and welcome back to the GAIMH podcast. My name is Mike Marinas. I'm your host here at GAIMH. Today we are thrilled to be able to have Katharine Frost on with us. She's an educational psychologist, started the Parent-Infant project at Ububele after training in infant mental health in London. So welcome to you, Katharine.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike.
We've been looking very, very forward to having someone with your credentials on the podcast. So very, very glad that we could connect with each other.
So, as am I.
Cool. So we wanted to start off talking about, because this is the GAIMH podcast, and you were part of founding GAIMH, I'd like to know a little bit about how GAIMH came about.
Yeah, with pleasure. The beginnings of GAIMH actually ran in parallel with the beginnings of Ububele's focus on infant mental health. And the founder of Ububele, Tony Hamburger, and his wife, Hilary, had spent some time in the UK in the early 2000s, and they really came across how parent-infant, infant-parent, and infant mental health was really causing such ripples in the United Kingdom, and how there was a growing acknowledgement of intervening with families, with babies, with as young as they could possibly be. And when Tony and Hilary visited the UK, they were really struck by the amount of training and services that were on offer to people within community clinics, and trainings that were offered to psychologists and mental health workers at all of the tertiary clinical training sites. Mm. So they offered me a post at Ububele at the end of 2004, and their hope was really that I would start infant mental health in Johannesburg, and that Ububele would be the start of really bringing some of this cutting research about baby watching and intervening clinically with babies and their families into Ububele. So within the 2 years that followed that, I was trained by Tessa Barradin of the Anna Freud Center, and we ran 2 trainings here at Ububele. And she said that really to solidify and cement our infant mental health work and to maintain connections with what was happening in the rest of the world, it would be very useful, one, for several of us to become members of the World Association, and then for us to start an affiliate, which we did. So the affiliate was originally called GAIMH. We later learned that the German association was also called GAIMH. Hence, in later iterations, as you've been a part of, Mike, GAIMH South Africa is the name that it has evolved to. Yeah. But so we really were a group of people that were in the first training that Tessa Barradin did here at Ububele, and we formed a constitution and became an affiliate and called ourselves GAIMH. So it had a double identity. It was our reading group, our parent-infant reading group. Wow. That was also GAIMH. And it was around the time in 2012, actually, when the Cape Town Congress was happening, and we really thought it was important that GAIMH be bigger than Ububele, and that it extend its membership and find a home for itself to include Ububele, but not be located within Ububele necessarily. So hence the evolution from, I suppose, was really 2011 onwards, as far as I know.
Yeah, and the reading group, that's still going?
That still continues. Wow. Yes. So that's a group of us that still meet once a month, and we discuss infant mental health cases and do readings. Yeah.
What do you feel is the impact into, and I speak from a position of being an allied health professional that does work in that population. What do you think is the impact of infant mental health as something that professionals should be worried about? Is the impact big into the disciplines of pediatrics and OTs and physios and all sorts of people that work with infants?
I mean, Mike, I think that very much is the role of GAIMH, and that you and the EXCO really have as a mandate. And I think that was also part of the reason why we at Ububele and we're a psychological organization, felt it was important that GAIMH have an identity outside of psychology necessarily, because as an advocacy organization, there remains a tremendous amount of work and education that needs to be done to inform allied professionals working with very small babies and their families, to find ways to share this cutting-edge research. Some of it's cutting edge, some of it now is 20, 30, 40 years old, and that still hasn't really been internalized by people working in the field. So I think the advocacy role, I think a lot of work has been done, but I think there remains a tremendous amount of work to be done about, the capacities of young babies, the needs of young babies, the support that families really require because of the critical period, the critical development of babies in these first 1,000 days, I suppose.
Very much so. And I think just thinking of it from my side, the amount of value that I know my chiropractic colleagues have got out of being invited to and becoming members of GAIMH has been huge. I mean, then on our groups and stuff, you see people talking using almost psychology terms, when they're talking about babies, and they're talking about things like attachment, and they're talking about things like how skin to skin is working, and they're just I know for our guys it's almost been a bit of a paradigm shift.
Yeah, well, that's really fabulous, and in a way I think that it's incredibly valuable to have infant mental health or outside of psychology, because unfortunately I think there remains a very powerful stigma around seeking assistance from a psychologist. There's I think it's synonymous with something being wrong, and I think that actually parenting and the importance of the first 1,000 days isn't something that's pathological, and I think a lot more people are more open about receiving infant mental health informed care from professionals outside of psychology. So yeah, kudos to GAIMH for really extending the message beyond psychology.
Such an important message, absolutely, because the information and the research is true inside psychology or outside psychology, but it's to 100%. Be able to get it out to the other practitioners that are working there and just give people an idea. This is a framework which you need to understand if you're going to be working with kids in these positions, that there are all of these other things which are possibly hidden from you if you're not looking for them.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you, as your role as the director of Ububele, how do you see Ububele's role in infant mental health in Gauteng?
How do I see our role? Unfortunately, our role at the moment is in providing services to the community of Alexandra, to the people and families within Alexandra. We provide a lot of services to the two major birthing sites within Alex and surrounds, Edenvale Hospital and First Avenue Clinic in Alex. And we provide a whole basket of services in the infant mental health field: home visiting, the Baby Match Project, the newborn behavioral observation. Some of these you may or may not be familiar with. But I think that our role is actually broader than just the provision of services, and we are growing our training arm. We offer training to professionals in infant mental health. Our course is called the Introduction to Parent-Infant Psychotherapy, and another course for allied professionals called Working with the Caregiver-Infant Relationship. And these two courses really talk to infant mental health theory and ways of intervening for anyone who's working with babies and their families. And I think that as we increase in our capacity, I think our training arm will develop, and we will be able to play a role not just in advocating for such trainings, but in providing these trainings and then hopefully supporting clinicians in thinking about infant mental health in the work that they do.
Yeah, you were talking about the newborn observation, the INBO. Is there
Yes.
So there is training that's going on with INBO?
Yes, there is training. Nikki Dawson, who's on your exco, and myself have just been accredited as trainers. The two of us are the first accredited trainers, I think, in Africa. So
wow.
We will be doing our first training in April in Cape Town this year. And the ENBO, as you probably know, is just the most fabulous tool because it reaches and highlights babies in their neonatal period. And it's I can't emphasize its power enough. It really is a transformative mental health intervention.
I've been introduced to it, and I'm getting myself as organized as possible to be able to go on a course because it's fascinating for me. So I'm very, very happy to know that you guys are accredited and qualified with that. That's fantastic.
Yes, we are. We are too.
It's wonderful. Can I also ask you? You also spoke a little bit about the Baby Mat project. This community model of infant mental health. Can you expand on that a little bit for me?
Yeah, sure. We've actually got a fabulous video on YouTube on the Baby Mat project. So anyone who's interested can go onto YouTube and just Google or just search the Ububele Baby Mat project. It's an intervention that really evolved from our first parent-infant psychotherapy training in the late 2000s. Mm-hmm. And we provide, it's two infant mental health trained clinicians, go to primary healthcare clinics. So those are the clinics where families take their babies for the routine weigh-ins and checkups and immunizations. And there's a group of parents with their small babies who wait sometimes for many hours to see a primary healthcare nurse. And we utilize that opportunity to speak to parents about the first 1,000 days, about the power of strong relationships, about the capacities of newborn babies, and about the challenges of parenting, particularly in South Africa. I think probably everywhere in every context has its specific challenges. Mm. And we then put a mat, a blanket on the floor, really, and make ourselves available for consultation. So a mom might bring her baby with an issue that is worrying her, such as preparation to return to work and concerns about weaning with breastfeeding, and or more recently a concern about HIV transmission via breastfeeding. And we really just provide a safe space to support parenting, to emphasize the importance of strong caregiver relationships, and at the same time screen to see if there's any additional services that the family and the baby might need, such as going to the SASSA office to access a childcare grant, or to possibly see an allied professional such as yourself if we think that might be an appropriate referral. So it's a community-based infant mental health space and an opportunity to advocate for relational needs of babies and parenting needs of new parents.
Sure. It leaves me with that feeling of thinking how many people that wouldn't have been impacted at all have the opportunity to actually just even start thinking in a certain way. And then how many children you can almost catch in that beginning phase and just affect everything going forward.
Absolutely, that there's a space, even if it's a symbolic space, and that you then might be able to take with you in your mind about a place for parenting, or a place to really think about baby and what baby's behavior may be communicating. So, a rash or a colicky baby, to have someone who sits with you who's interested in that, and to find out a bit more of what lies beneath those things, because the baby's body is so tied up with what's happening for them in their emotional world and in their context. Mm.
It's incredible. And I think the other thing that really stands out for me with that Baby Mat project is, like you said earlier, there is the stigma that sits between, going for help. And this is just breaking that down completely and just saying, we're right here.
Absolutely. And we're not behind closed doors, and we don't, have impassive faces and just listen and are there for mental health challenges. We're there for the ordinary struggles of parenting, and every parent has a bad day, and every baby's behavior is worth thinking about with somebody else. So I couldn't agree with you more. I think that very much is its power. It's about destigmatizing, accessing support.
I think that's the other thing you bring up now. It's not that you need to have a problem to be supported, because at the end of the day, and this is what I work with a lot. I mean, the babies I'm working with, the colicky babies, reflux babies, these are not issues that are generally, going to give them any long-term big problems. However, they are quality of life issues. And they're quality of life issues which affect them in those first 1,000 days. And the thing is, yes, it might not be a massive problem which is going to lead to like a hard diagnosis of a diabetes or something that you're going to have to manage going forward. But there is so much help and support that can be provided in that situation, where you can then have best experience and not just we're fine. You can actually raise that to going within the first 1,000 days, have the best experience you could possibly have.
Absolutely. And in fact, we try and encourage families to come and sit with us on the mat to share aspects of their baby's development that they're really pleased with as well. Because I think that, parents, there's so much, sometimes it's such a lonely journey, and you might really want to say, my baby's just started, crawling, or we've just got some new teeth, or my baby, I don't know, can recognize my voice, and there's a space and someone to share that celebration with as well.
I get you. That, I tell you what, that is a clinical pearl I'm going to take with me into the office tomorrow. I'm going to ask every mom what's going right.
Fabulous.
I'm going to give them a space to ask what's going right, and I can imagine it in my mind now that the impassive face is just going to crack into a big smile, telling me about the wonderful thing, because they were prepared with all the negative things.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow, it's been incredible to talk to you. It really has, and especially someone who was right back in the beginning of GAIMH, and now that I'm part of it now, sort of seeing where it's going. It's incredible to see where it came from.
Yeah, it really is, and it's great to see how it's growing, and going into the 21st century with all the digital stuff. It's really exciting because it means more people can be reached, and the message is such a positive one, Mike. I think that's the thing about infant mental health, is that if babies, it's the same message. If babies are well supported, have strong relationships, it really is a way for us to influence the future, and it's all, the mechanisms are all there. It still holds me, and it still inspires me.
Phenomenal. I think that's the message of the day. Katharine, thank you so much for spending your time with us here on the GAIMH podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
It's my great pleasure, Mike, and all the best with your work as you continue it.
Thanks very much.